Hello everyone, welcome to the Saturn Return, third in my series on Saturn transit. Every 30 years, at 30, 60 and 90 years of age, Saturn returns to his natal position in your chart. What should you expect? Should you be afraid or should you be excited? All the information is on the video. If you are new to my channel, sub below. Let's begin. First point, everybody, is that the Saturn return in modern astrology has a few examples of the multitude of publications now available in the Western system has been turned into an absolute nightmare scenario. The Saturn return does not need to be survived. The Saturn return is actually a joyful experience of renewal in your life. So let's find the truth of it. So firstly, when do you experience Saturn return and for how long does it last? I have Saturn here in the first house of a Vedic chart, just as an example. As soon as you are born, Saturn will transit right around your chart until around 29 years of age. He comes back to the sign he occupied when you were born. As soon as he enters that sign, not the house, just use equal house system, sign for a house. So say this is Aries. As soon as Saturn comes back to 0 degrees Aries, until he leaves at 29 degrees Aries, you are in your Saturn return. You do not judge by the degree of Saturn, just the sign of Saturn. So Saturn being back in that birth sign, that 2.5 to 3 year period, that is your Saturn return. So what's going to happen? Well, actually, Saturn's got a great big birthday present for you at the Saturn return. Let's unwrap it. Yes, everyone, Saturn has just removed a big pile of your karmic debt. Completely wiped it out. Cut up that credit card, it's finished. Isn't that great? This is the Vedic understanding of a Saturn return. Why has this happened? Because Saturn has gone full circle around your chart and he's come back to the place he was when you were born. Now, you're really reading this by the house position of Saturn, because in the house position, you have karmic debt, direct karmic debt in that area. And wherever Saturn is by house, you will feel up until 30 particularly that it's a very difficult part of your life. That area of your life, those circumstances are very hard to face. You feel like running away from them half of the time. There are real roadblocks, real limitations in your life because of this karmic debt. Well, when you get to 30 and again 60 and furthermore even 90, a great proportion of that karmic debt is wiped out, completely removed. And this frees you up for a new start in your life. Specifically, everybody, it frees you up for a complete change in life direction. It really is a 360 turn in some ways in terms of how you live your life. It isn't always a new career, but it's a change, a turnaround in how you are conducting yourself in that career or relationships or lifestyle. Whatever it is, it's a change. And here's the most important point. You won't feel it as something which you don't want. You're not being dragged kicking and screaming down this new avenue in your life. That's not the Saturn return. You are in control of it. You make a choice. The biggest factor in the Saturn return is a choice is always given you and you are in complete control of it. And that choice, everybody, gives you the real opportunity to take responsibility in your life, to reorganize your life, leading to a rebirth. Responsibility is the key factor of Saturn. Saturn demands maturity, responsibility. But again, at the Saturn return, you are ready for it. You want it. You embrace it. It's not a struggle. You are offered a glorious opportunity very often. Doors open to you that were shut before because of that karmic debt. The doors just open and you decide which door you go through. You reorganize your life from top to bottom. If you want to declutter, my goodness, the Saturn return is a major declutter on every level of your life, physically, mentally, even spiritually. You declutter, you start again. And once more, you are in control of it. So many times in our life, we say, if I just do this, I'll change my life. But it doesn't actually happen because only at the Saturn return do you have that window of opportunity to really reorganize, to really make a major change. And of course, rebirth, because when you declutter, when you take responsibility, when you stand up tall and say, this is me, this is what I want to do, this way, not that way, then it is a complete rebirth in your life. So, how do you judge your Saturn return? What's it going to mean for you? Which areas of your life are going to be impacted? Let's see. You judge everybody in three simple ways. First of all, by the house position of Saturn. It's so important to understand this in depth. If you're unclear about your house position meaning and the aspects that Saturn makes in the Vedic system, check the link below. I have a whole playlist with every house position of Saturn fully analyzed for you. So yes, house of Saturn aspects, 3rd, 7th and 10th aspect to those houses become crucial in Saturn return. And finally, the houses actually ruled by Saturn. Where is Aquarius? Where is Capricorn in your chart? Because those areas will also become very important in this Saturn return. You might be saying, what about the sign of Saturn? Well, the sign of Saturn is not that important at all. In fact, I would say don't even worry about it, because sign of Saturn is actually your innate behavior. It's your conditioned responses from many lifetimes. That's why you have Saturn in that sign. So no, don't worry about sign of Saturn. You'll be acting that way for the rest of your life. Just look at the house position, aspects made from that house, and the houses ruled by Saturn. So to help you see how this works and how you can judge Saturn return, let's look at two famous celebrities, David Bowie and Marilyn Monroe. So starting with Marilyn Monroe, the famous Hollywood actress, legendary film star, of course, sex symbol as well. She was born in 1926 and died in 1962 at the age of 36 of a drug overdose. I'm going to just focus on her Saturn return only, that occurred in September 1953 until November 1955. So, first key principle is, as I've said, house position of Saturn to understand. Saturn in the 4th house in Libra retrograde, extremely strong, because exalted doesn't mean for good always, by the way. It just means that it's going to be an extremely strong natal Saturn. It's her Atmakarika, by the way, so it's a soul planet. This Saturn is the crux of her chart. But anyway, a 4th house Saturn always gives a difficult childhood, very often some strain with the mother. My goodness, she had that. She was separated from her mother very early on in life. Her mother had schizophrenia. So she ended up going from home to home, from care home to foster home. Very insecure time indeed, with a lot of trauma for her. But what about the houses? Next point, ruled by Saturn. These are going to come into her Saturn return. 3rd house aspect on the 6th house of health, conflicts. 7th aspect on the 10th, career. And the 10th aspect on her 1st house of self and her self-confidence. Finally, houses ruled by Saturn, they will be impacted too in her Saturn return. So Capricorn rules her 7th house of relationships, and Aquarius her 8th house of sudden events, trauma, and indeed financial affairs which are joint. So what actually happened? First thing to happen, everybody, was that her career rocketed, completely took off. Prior to September 1953, she was an actress, that's sure, but she wasn't well known in any way. In 1953, a movie called Niagara plummeted her into fame. Everybody agrees that was the key movie. That was where her world fame began. And during the Saturn return, during Saturn's transit in Libra, she made many famous, iconic films that assured her stardom, like Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, 7-Year Itch, How to Marry a Millionaire, and so on. So many key films made in this time. Furthermore, in 1954, she formed her own production company. She took control of her films. Again, a very key factor, taking responsibility, taking control, as I say. So doors opened up to her, opportunities came to her. She came into her true maturity. She came into her own in this Saturn return in her career, with this aspect on her 10th house here. Next factor, relationships. She married overnight in a very unexpected way the famous baseball star Joe DiMaggio. She just ran away with him. She eloped with him. That was what all the newspapers said. So, eighth house, as I say, Aquarius, Saturn rule coming into play, sudden events, marriage, seventh house coming into play, ruled by Capricorn. But this marriage didn't last very long. During the Saturn return, she married, but she also divorced as well. So, home life. So, she has a new home, then she moves again because of this marriage situation. And obviously, it's a sixth house factor, divorce, because of litigation, as I say, third aspect, and eighth house as well, because Aquarius ruled it's going to be split of financial assets during divorce. So, in every way, the houses aspected, the houses rule show us exactly what happened to Marilyn Monroe during her Saturn return. Whoops, everyone, forgot one very important happening during this time. In 1954, she also enrolled in the Actors Studio. This is very important because it shows the 10th aspect to her first house of self. The Actors Studio was a training studio for actors. What she was doing is she was perfecting her skill. She was taking it seriously and taking responsibility. Once again, taking complete control of her destiny at this time. Next up is David Bowie, the famous musician, rock star, born in 1947 and died recently in January 2016. He's had two Saturn returns. First Saturn return in July 75 to 77, second in September 04 to October 2006. So how can we judge David Bowie's natal Saturn for his Saturn return? Very simply, it's in the 7th house of relationships and business affairs. It's aspecting the 9th house of foreign affairs and foreign travel, the 1st house of self, and the 4th house of home. So all of these are going to be impacted. Plus, Saturn rules again his 1st house of self. So it's very much about who he is as a person. And the 2nd house of family, 2nd house of food intake, 2nd house of monetary factors and security. Don't forget also Saturn is conjunct the moon in this chart, which slightly complicates it because it's his Sade Sati right in the middle of it every time he has Saturn return. So what happens to David Bowie during his first Saturn return? Well, prior to July 75, he was living in America and he was already a very famous rock star. But he was also a junkie, a drug addict. He had a very serious drug problem. What happened was that during this period, 75 to 77, he went to live in Berlin, Germany. So we can clearly see this. Third aspect of Saturn on the 9th house of foreign lands. He goes to somewhere new, foreign lands, and he lives there because of 10th aspect onto his 4th house of home. He stayed there and he said himself he went there to overcome the drug addiction. How can that be seen? Saturn is the ruler of his 2nd house. 2nd house is about substance abuse. So it's very clearly seen there. Of course, turning inwards aspect onto his 1st house clearly shown. But don't forget, he's bang in the middle of Sade Sati, Saturn conjunct Moon. So we have to understand that that is a serious introverted time, turning inwards to find himself. Relationship-wise, we know that his marriage to Angie Bowie was on the rocks by then. So a very splitting apart time in his relationship, and he got divorced in 1980. Now, David Bowie's second Saturn return occurred September 04, October 06, another complete restructure and reorganization of his life from top to bottom. In June 2004, just prior to the Saturn return, he had a heart attack on stage. He had to have immediate heart surgery. And from this time onwards, we now know he had continual small heart attacks right up until when he died in 2016. So heart problem was a continual factor. Even though he hid it, he was a very private person. So many planets, 12th house, don't forget. So in this period, he said he was now going to focus on his home life. Saturn aspecting home, of course. He was turning inwards once again. Health concerns, Saturn aspecting first house. Second house again impacted because second house is diet and food. When you've got a heart problem, you have to take care of your diet. It's a major thing, and he probably had to take medication as well. So a complete turning inwards and restructure again. But don't forget, every Saturn return for David Bowie is Sade Sati. Sade Sati is a turning inwards, particularly his third Sade Sati can be very dangerous for health, don't forget. So if you want to know about Sade Sati, check the link below. The second video in this series has all the details, and indeed for Sade Sati for Cancer moon sign also. So everyone, I hope that was a useful explanation for you of the important Saturn return. If you are new to my channel, as I say, sub below. Coming up soon, many new videos on Vedic astrology and indeed all astrology. Goodbye for now, and God bless everyone.